Hey guys, tonight we're plunging back into a time when Europe smelled like smoke, soup, and superstition. You're not royalty. You're not a knight. You're just you. Average, tired, maybe a little damp. But tonight, something strange stirs in the cobbled streets of your sleepy medieval town. A woman starts dancing. Not ballroom dancing, not joyful spinning, just twitchy, frantic footwork like she's being chased by invisible bees. Then another joins. Then 10 more. By the time you poke your head out the shuttered window of your drafty little room, there's a crowd hopping and stomping and jerking in the square. Nobody's smiling. You watch, barefoot and curious, because what else is there to do? There's no Netflix. No TikTok. Not even an aggressively motivational pamphlet. Just candlelight, cows, and this impromptu midnight rave. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink at the spectacle outside. This isn't a celebration. No fiddler led them into this mess. And no one seems to know why it started. The dancers are drenched in sweat, some bleeding from the soles, some crying. But they can't stop. You open the door and step into the warm stone air. You feel it in your bones, it's going to be one of those weird weeks. A neighbor grabs your wrist. His eyes are wide. She hasn't stopped for hours, he says, nodding toward a spinning woman who now has foam crusting around her mouth. Her name's Greta. Good baker. Terrible at dancing. You try a laugh, but it comes out weak. Something about this is deeply wrong. People don't just spontaneously dance to the point of collapse. Except they do now. It's 15:18 in Strasbourg and you're about to have the worst cardio session of your life. At first, you think you're immune. Maybe your modern mindset will keep you grounded. Maybe you're too rational. Or too lazy. But soon, your own toes start to tap. Your heel itches. Your knees jiggle when you sit. You try to distract yourself by fetching water. Bad move. The river's lined with twitching villagers, their shoes discarded, their limbs jerking as if they're puppets with frayed strings. One guy is muttering a prayer between hiccuping steps. Another is reciting chicken recipes. No one knows the cause. Theories swirl faster than the dancers. Some whisper about cursed bread poisoned by ergot, the same fungus that can cause convulsions and hallucinations. Historians still argue whether the bread angle is legit or just a moldy scapegoat. You try to sleep that night, but your feet don't agree. You kick off your wool blanket. You stretch. You bounce on the straw mattress. And eventually, you rise. You dance. It's not graceful. It's not rhythmic. It's like your body has decided it's done asking permission. Your arms flail. Your torso lurches. You bash your shin on the bedpost and don't even feel it. Outside, the square is still thumping. Villagers, rich and poor, dance side by side like they've all been invited to the worst wedding reception ever. And the music? There isn't any. Not yet. Just the slap of skin on stone, gasps, cries, and the occasional scream when someone collapses and keeps twitching. You tell yourself you're still in control. Just a little dance. Just to blend in. That illusion shatters when sunrise comes and you're still at it, soaked, shaking, and more exhausted than your high school PE days. Fun fact, the historical records from Strasbourg describe dozens, possibly hundreds, of people dancing nonstop for days. Some reportedly died from exhaustion, dehydration, or heart failure. But it's also worth noting, the records are murky and exaggerated tales were a medieval specialty. He danced until his legs caught fire isn't exactly peer-reviewed. You spot a child trying to sleep under a cart, his mother spinning nearby like a broken top. He looks at you with a face that says, "Sir, what is happening?" You shrug mid-lurch. A dog howls. Somebody starts chanting. Somebody else is naked. It's only Tuesday. This would be a great time for the local authorities to step in and help. Spoiler, they don't. In fact, they're confused and kind of terrified. After all, this isn't war or plague or famine, the usual medieval disasters. This is dancing. Relentless, involuntary, probably contagious dancing. And it's coming for everyone. Even you. The town square is a fever dream now. You blink against the midday sun and realize you're still moving, arms twitching, knees bobbing. A woman near you is weeping while twirling, her eyes rolled so far back they look like bad eggs. A man just keeled over beside the bakery, twitching like a wind-up doll winding down. No one moves to help. No one can. Welcome to Monday in medieval Europe. You try to sit. Your legs disagree. It's like they've entered a union and declared a 24-hour performance art strike. No rest, just interpretive agony. You collapse into an uncoordinated crouch, but the urge to rise and continue flailing gnaws at your muscles like an itch behind your bones. What's worse? You're hungry, not metaphorically, like your stomach is folding in on itself. But the town's already running out of bread, meat, and all things chewable. And if the moldy rye theory is true, the bread might be what cursed you to begin with. It's the most medieval problem ever. Starve or risk spontaneous ballet. The townsfolk are divided. Some say it's divine punishment. Others think it's witchcraft. The local tailor swears it's because people stopped paying tithe. Another man mutters something about dancing fumes coming up from the riverbed. You start to suspect he's just inventing theories so he can feel smart while disco flailing. A pair of monks walk by, clutching scrolls and casting nervous glances. They do not join the dance. Not yet. You hear one whisper it's a penance from the saints. His companion responds, or a plague, with jazz hands. The clergy is just as baffled as everyone else. They organize a prayer vigil, but no one can kneel for long. Your knees don't want to bend in stillness, only in spastic, mid-step rebellion. By the end of the day, the cobblestones are streaked with blood, mostly from torn feet. Shoes are tossed aside like confetti. You spot one dancer wearing a pot on his head and nothing else. No one blinks. The town has lost all capacity for normal reactions. And yet, nobody's shutting this down. The city council is too busy arguing over the causes. Some want to ban dancing, good luck enforcing that. Others suggest forcibly removing dancers to a field outside town. One guy genuinely proposes building a wall around the afflicted and just leaving them there. His suggestion is politely tabled. For now. Meanwhile, you're in a full-body sweat. Your body burns with exertion, but still refuses rest. When you close your eyes, you sway involuntarily, like your bones have been taught a rhythm they can't forget. Historians still argue whether this was truly mass hysteria, a cultural expression of trauma, or something else entirely. Maybe it was a communal stress purge. Or maybe it's what happens when people don't have therapy, video games, or oat milk. Sleep-deprived and increasingly delirious, you stumble toward a barrel of water and dunk your head. It helps for one glorious second. Then your shoulders jerk and you're back to your ridiculous, twitchy dance. A nearby woman mutters something about St. Vitus again. You'll hear that name a lot in the coming days. You notice something subtle: not everyone's dancing the same way. Some look like they're mimicking court dancers. Others seem to be doing a panic shuffle. One guy is just doing lunges. Maybe he's using the plague as a fitness opportunity. You mentally name him Chad. A faint rhythm begins to spread, not from within the dancers, but from the town itself. Blacksmiths bang in time. A woman claps slowly in sync. It's almost like the city is adjusting to its new pulse, giving in to the madness. Suddenly you hear an argument near the church. The priest wants to ring the bells nonstop to ward off evil spirits. The town bell ringer, a very tired man named Klaus, responds with something that sounds like, absolutely not. Klaus will be overruled before sunrise. That night, you collapse beside the church steps, still pulsing faintly. You're so tired you forget how to spell your own name. A goat walks by and gives you a sympathetic nod. You nod back. This is your life now. The cobbled streets echo with exhausted groans and the slap-slap of sore feet. Somewhere, someone is still managing a sort of hopscotch. You're not sure how. You've started dreaming while awake, vivid flashes of dinner plates, pillows, and your favorite pair of non-existent medieval sweatpants. It's day 2 or 3. Who's counting? You overhear a debate between two elderly women sitting near the well. One says this has happened before in Aachen in the 1300s. Another claims it's a demonic contagion spread through eye contact. You try not to look anyone in the face after that. A scholarly tidbit floats through your memory. Yes, there were similar dancing plagues in other parts of Europe. The 1370s. The 1420s. Small groups, big flailing. Sometimes people danced into rivers. Sometimes off cliffs. But this is different. This is organized chaos. You try to walk away, just head home and lie down. You don't get far. Your feet drag you back, like they've been cursed by the spirit of a bad choreographer. Even when you clutch a wooden post to stay upright, your torso wriggles like it's trying to separate from your spine. You're starting to hallucinate. You see your grandmother doing the Macarena. You see Saint Vitus doing the worm. You hear bells even when they stop. And that's when it hits you. This might not end. The body can only take so much, but no one knows what triggers the stop. There's no medical cure. No priestly intervention that's worked. Just wave after wave of twitching, gasping villagers, and no roadmap out. As twilight falls again, someone starts singing. Badly. A rhythmic, shanty-nonsense song. You hum along between spasms. You can't help it. This is your town now. This is your fate. This is medieval Monday. And you're woefully underdressed for it. You wake up mid-spin. Or maybe you never slept. Time has lost its edges. Melted like wax near a torch. Your legs burn. Your arms swing like they're trying to detach. You're not dancing anymore, you're surviving movement. The worst part? You're fully aware. Trapped in your own body like a medieval marionette with fraying strings. You try to will yourself to stop. Close your eyes. Count backward from 10. Imagine a still pond. Nope. Your body keeps going, one foot dragging the other, hands jerking out like a confused scarecrow. You mutter something that was meant to be help, but comes out sounding like heel poo, punctuated by an accidental pirouette. A child nearby watches you with large eyes and whispers to her brother, he looks like a drunk rooster. You've lost the will to be insulted. The village healer, a woman with exactly 3 teeth and a passion for onions, tells you gravely your feet are possessed. You'd laugh, but your calf muscle seizes and makes the decision for you. She offers you a poultice made of crushed rosemary and boiled radish water. It smells like old socks. You drink it anyway. It helps nothing. Later, your left foot slaps hard against a stone and you hear something unpleasant, like a crunch wrapped in wet fabric. Pain slices through you, sharp and hot. But you don't stop. That's the horror now. You physically can't stop. Your limbs move without consent. You think about how your childhood self dreamed of being in a dance troupe. You didn't mean like this. This is not jazz hands. This is jazz horror. A man you vaguely recognize, Bertram, maybe, has tied himself to a wagon to try and halt his legs. He swings there like a badly made puppet, sweat raining off his brow. It doesn't work, he croaks. Still dancing. Just sideways. You nod sympathetically mid-stagger. At this point, the local authorities have stepped in. Their big idea? Build a temporary stage in the square and let people dance it out. No joke. They think giving the dancers a wooden platform will encourage a controlled expulsion of heat. That's not medicine, it's a fever dream. But here you are. The stage creaks under dozens of flailing bodies. A merchant's wife does a full-body convulsion, falls off the edge, and gets back up still moving. A chicken somehow gets on stage and just walks calmly through the chaos like it's seen worse. That's when the real kicker hits. Your feet are beginning to blister. Not just 1 or 2 little pink nubs. We're talking full medieval pancake-level destruction. Blood seeps through your already worn soles. Your toes are raw, and some of your toenails are having an identity crisis. Your sandals gave out yesterday, and now it's you versus the cobblestones. The pain doesn't stop the movement. In fact, it seems to intensify it. Your brain is screaming to lie down, curl up, find a blanket, but your body has got other plans. Spastic, relentless plans. Historians still argue whether this total lack of bodily control was neurological or psychological. Some claim ergot poisoning, the same fungus that causes LSD-like symptoms. Others insist it was mass psychogenic illness, where a community's collective stress and trauma explode into physical symptoms. You, meanwhile, are trying to remember if you ever upset a saint or accidentally danced near a cursed relic. Honestly, at this point, a divine curse is starting to sound reasonable. A wealthy man, clearly not used to peasant-level suffering, collapses beside you and groans, This is indecent. Unnatural. You nod sympathetically while your leg does the worm. There's a quiet moment, maybe 5 seconds, where everyone slows. You think, this is it. It's over. Then someone sneezes, and it all starts again. You grab a nearby broom for balance. It's splintered and smells like goat, but at least it gives your arm something to do. A passing friar blesses you hurriedly, then nearly trips on a woman trying to jazz kick and cry at the same time. The square has become a pit. A dance pit. Not the fun kind you see at concerts. The kind that makes you question all your life choices and also whether your ankles are still attached. By now, food deliveries are inconsistent. A couple of nuns throw bread loaves from the safety of a second-story window like pigeon feeders. Most of the loaves are stale. You don't care. You try to catch one in your mouth mid-lurch. You fail. A dog steals it. The dog is not dancing. That feels unfair. You manage to hobble near the edge of the square, hands clutching your sides, breathing like you've just run 5 marathons while being chased by bees. You collapse, knees first, then elbows into a shallow puddle. You feel a flicker of stillness. And then your feet start again. A group of dancers has created an unintentional rhythm now, stomping in a slow, syncopated beat. It's haunting. Almost musical. A group of children starts clapping along, giggling like it's a game. Their mother is in tears. A healer shouts something about purging the heat from your blood. That old theory again, medieval doctors thought this was all about hot blood and imbalance of bodily humors. You know, the same theory that once prescribed crocodile dung as face cream. You're not feeling super hopeful. Still, someone brings leeches. You decline. Politely. Then not so politely. And through it all, your feet, betrayers of peace, keep moving. Left, right, spin. Left, lurch, down. You try to form a prayer, but all that comes out is a gasping groan that might be in Latin now. You're not even sure anymore. The sun dips. Again. You've lost count of the days. The stage is splintered. The cobblestones slick with sweat and worse. Your feet? They're just bones and spite at this point. And still you dance. Your body isn't dancing anymore. It's revolting. Somewhere between the raw flesh of your feet and the splintering ache of your spine, you've entered a new stage of misery, survival choreography. You don't move with rhythm, you twitch with purpose now. Each convulsion is a protest against your own limbs. Every muscle is staging its own rebellion independently. But then comes the twist, someone brings musicians. Yes. Actual, human musicians. The city council, those stalwart thinkers in pointed hats, have decided that if this is a divine curse, maybe the solution is to guide it with, and I quote, soothing harmonies. So, they fund a small group of pipers, drummers, and lute enthusiasts to play calming tunes in the square. The result is something between a fevered Renaissance fair and a chaotic mosh pit. One piper is clearly just improvising. The drummer has the rhythm of a particularly anxious goat. And the lute player? He's definitely using the plague as his big break. He keeps shouting things like, "This next one's in honor of the afflicted," before launching into a 3-chord ballad no one asked for. You want to yell at him, but your jaw is too sore from clenching. The theory behind the music isn't entirely foolish, though. In medieval thought, music had healing properties. The right melody could realign the humors or appease the melancholy spirit. The wrong melody, of course, could drive you mad. No pressure, Luke guy. So, you dance to the tune of hopeful nonsense. Every now and then, a song seems to briefly stabilize the crowd. The rhythm unifies the chaos just for a moment. Bodies move more fluidly. Feet sync up. It almost starts to resemble real dancing. Like a medieval flash mob with better costumes and worse consequences. Then someone screams. The spell breaks. The twitching resumes. You spot a girl of about 12 spinning rapidly in place, arms out like windmill blades. Her face is slack with exhaustion. She's been at it since sunrise. A nearby monk tries to coax her off the street with a loaf of honey bread. She grabs it, stuffs it into her mouth without stopping the spin. You respect the hustle. Another man attempts to harness the music intentionally. He claps and chants along, forming a rhythmic call that some of the dancers pick up. For a few surreal minutes, it becomes a coordinated frenzy, like synchronized flailing. But just as quickly, it crumbles. Rhythm is no match for madness. Historians still argue whether these musicians helped or made things worse. Some say they gave shape to chaos, helped people release energy in a controlled form. Others argue it prolonged the agony by enabling the delusion that this was some kind of blessed ritual. One chronicler claimed the musicians themselves eventually caught the affliction. A drummer who started with a steady beat was later seen slapping his own cheeks in 6/8 time. Back to you, though. You're exhausted again, and hungry again, and bleeding still. The worst part is that you're beginning to recognize your fellow sufferers. The man with the crooked nose and long stride, he's always near the church steps. The woman with the shrill humming and the flower crown, you keep seeing her twirling past the market stall. You've never spoken, but in a strange way, these people are your community now. There is no applause. No applause when someone collapses. No applause when someone dies. Yes, that's happening now. A boy, perhaps 16, drops mid-turn. A horrible stillness takes over. 2 seconds of breathless silence. Then the dancing resumes around him like nothing happened. People step over the body. No one wants to stop, maybe no one can stop. That's the true horror. Not the dancing, but the not stopping. You wonder if this is what it feels like to be haunted by your own bones. You collapse again, forehead hitting the ground hard enough to dazzle your vision. It doesn't matter. Your legs jerk upward and begin again. A noblewoman nearby has tied bells to her wrists to add charm to her suffering. It works, weirdly. A new batch of pipers arrives. This time they try solemn tunes. Deep, minor key melodies. Some sound like morning songs. One is so slow it makes your legs lag, but not stop. You appreciate the effort. Someone begins singing in Latin. It's beautiful. Other voices join in. The dancers still move, but more slowly now. Not from peace, just from fatigue. You try to whisper sing along, but your mouth is too dry. You lick your lips and taste blood. Around you, the mood is shifting. Less panic. More resignation. The musicians, too, are quieter now. They no longer play to inspire joy or even calm. They play like it's a funeral dirge for the living. And in a way, it is. A healer stumbles into the square holding a bundle of herbs and muttering about wormwood and lemon balm. He sprinkles a powder around the perimeter, declaring it a protective circle. A few dancers try to escape through it. None succeed. The rhythm always pulls them back. One of the pipers collapses mid-song. His instrument squeals beneath him like a wounded bird. No one helps him. The performance goes on. You catch yourself wondering if you've always danced like this. Maybe this was your destiny all along. Maybe your bones knew the rhythm before you did. A dog starts barking in time. Someone mistakes it for divine encouragement. That evening, the mayor declares that the music has shown progress and that dancing appears more focused. You nearly trip over your own foot in protest. Focused? You have a bloody blister the size of a boiled egg and one arm that now permanently does the wave. Still, some part of you has accepted the musicians. Their presence means you're being seen. Acknowledged. Scored even. You're no longer just writhing for no reason. You're writhing to the beat. Whether that's better or worse, you're too tired to decide. As the last note fades, a soft sigh sweeps through the dancers. Not relief, just endurance. The music's gone, but your legs aren't finished. They never are. You wake up on your feet again. Actually, no, you didn't sleep. You only thought you did. You blinked a little longer than usual, maybe dreamed for half a second, then lurched right back into the chaos. It's night. Or it might be early morning. Time doesn't feel linear anymore. It loops, like your footsteps. The musicians are gone now. Their melodies linger like the smell of old beer, faint and sour. Without them, the square feels emptier and somehow louder. You hear coughing, sobbing, the shuffling of dozens of feet on gritty stone, the occasional retch. Someone might be singing a hymn in a cracked voice. Or maybe it's just screaming. The city leaders, after their great music experiment, have moved on to containment. That's their new word. Sounds clean and decisive. In practice, it means barricades. They've closed off the main streets, rolled carts across alleyways, stationed guards at the gates. The dancing ones you are corralled like wandering livestock. It's not cruel exactly, but it's not kind. The city wants its space back. Wants its market to run again. Wants its sermons to be intelligible again. Wants to stop children from asking why that man is shaking like a possessed puppet near the bread stand. You are now officially an inconvenience. Some of the townsfolk toss food scraps over the barricades. A few even mutter blessings as they do, but most just avoid eye contact. You've become a mirror they'd rather not look into. Who knows? Maybe you'll infect their dinner party just by existing. Historians still argue whether the dancers were quarantined to prevent spread or simply to hide them. The symptoms didn't follow a contagion pattern. Families were split, neighbors spared while others spasmed. The logic of infection doesn't quite fit. But fear? Fear fits perfectly. Inside the barricades, you notice new structures being erected. Small canvas tents, crude lean-tos, places for the dancers to collapse between spasms. Welcome to your new neighborhood, medieval dance camp. There's a hierarchy here now. The longest movers, those who've been afflicted the longest, get the shadiest spots. One woman has earned herself a whole wagon to sleep in. They call her Mother Spinner. Her eyes are permanently half-closed. She hasn't spoken in 2 days. You envy her wagon deeply. Your corner is by the dung pile. Great airflow. Terrible everything else. At this point, your body is one big contradiction. You ache so deeply that lying down hurts, but standing feels worse. Your feet, somehow still attached, are covered in cloth strips scavenged from an old apron. You try to tie them up like makeshift socks. They've fused to your skin now. You've also developed a little sidestep twitch. It happens every few minutes, usually when someone says God or dinner. You'd be embarrassed, but everyone else has their own signature spasms too. One man hiccups while moonwalking. Another lady jerks both elbows out every time a bell rings. It's the most tragic choreography on earth. City officials, ever the visionaries, now circulate a new theory: let them dance it out. Yes. Again. But this time in isolation. They think you'll purge the madness if no one interferes. Which is exactly what they said last week and the week before. A guard tosses a parchment over the barricade. It reads, "Keep dancing. For the safety of all." You might scream if your throat wasn't already shredded. Even the clergy have grown quiet. The prayers once shouted from the churches are now muttered half-heartedly. The bishop came down to the square once, waved some incense, declared something about Saint Vitus. Then he left and never returned. Ah yes, Saint Vitus. He's become a sort of accidental mascot for the plague. Historians debate whether the dancing was really a devotional trance gone rogue or if invoking saints was just a medieval panic button. Either way, little charms of Vitus now dangle from corners of the barricade. You stare at one now. It's poorly carved. Looks more like a turnip with eyes. Nearby, someone has fashioned a drum out of a barrel and is hitting it with a spoon. It's not musical. It's just noise. He's not trying to inspire movement, he's trying to outpace it. You get it. You really do. Sometimes you think the rhythm will save you. Other times, it's the enemy. By midday, it rains. Hard. A proper sky dump. Cold and heavy and sudden. It's the only thing powerful enough to slow the dancers. Not stop, never that, but slow. The mud rises fast. It cakes your feet. It adds weight to your spasms. You're suddenly slip-sliding with every step. Some people fall and don't get up. Others just lie down and shake in place. You curl up beneath a cartwheel and feel the drops soak your clothes until they fuse to your skin. You try to cry. Nothing comes out. Then you sleep. Truly sleep for maybe 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, you dream of sitting still. That's it. No angels. No visions. Just sitting. Not moving. Still. You wake up coughing from the cold and immediately start twitching again. Containment hasn't helped. Now and then, a well-meaning friar brings hot broth. You slurp it with a shaking hand, spill half on your chin. A child next to you knocks over her cup entirely. She doesn't seem to notice. You try to help her, but your body jerks and you nearly kick her in the face. You both laugh. It's either that or cry. At night, someone lights a torch in the corner of the square. The flames cast shadows of the dancers against the church wall. You watch your own silhouette jerk across ancient stone. You look like a scarecrow being electrocuted. You think, if only this were performance art. If only this ended with applause. Instead, it ends with exhaustion. The guards reduce their patrols. No one's escaping. Where would they even go? The square smells of mold and panic. The makeshift tents sag with damp air. A dog whines in the dark. Somewhere, someone hums a lullaby between gasps. It's been weeks? You've stopped counting. You hear someone mutter, maybe tomorrow. You don't ask what they mean. The word maybe feels like a luxury now. You pull your knees to your chest, breath rattling in and out, and wait for your feet to betray you again. They do. The sun rises again, indifferent as ever. It doesn't matter whether you're ready. Your body is. Your legs twitch into motion before your mind even wakes up. You lurch upright with the gracelessness of a sack of spoiled vegetables, and once again, the choreography of misery resumes. You've begun to think of your dancing like a second heartbeat. Not beautiful. Just inevitable. A new arrival joins the camp today. He's clean. Too clean. His boots are polished. His cloak isn't tattered. And most importantly, he isn't twitching. Not yet. The others eye him like a carcass with a heartbeat, interesting but suspicious. He introduces himself as a physician from Basel. He says this like it means something. Then he gestures to his strange little sack of tools, small blades, pouches of dried herbs, a vial of yellowish liquid that smells like fermented apples and old socks. Apparently, he's here to help. You don't mean to laugh out loud, but your body jerks just as you're exhaling, and the result is a loud snort. He doesn't take offense. He's kind in that professional, slightly worried way. The way a man might look at a collapsing barn and say, let's try more hay. His theory? Blood. Obviously. It's always the blood. Either you've got too much of it, or it's in the wrong place, or it's offended God. Hard to say. So he pulls out a small knife. Yep. Bloodletting time. He makes a neat little cut behind your ear. Just a nick. Polite wound. You feel the warm trickle begin immediately. Your vision spins, but it always spins now, so no big change. He leans back, proud of his work. Says something about releasing the pressure. Historians still argue whether physicians like this truly believed in the humors, or if they just needed something to do. After all, what do you do when your patient can't stop dancing long enough to explain their symptoms? Still, it's hard to hate him. He's trying. Over the next few days, more doctors arrive, each with their own theories. One wears a beak mask stuffed with lavender and mint. He calls it protection. Looks more like he's about to star in a particularly unsettling shadow play. Another prefers to douse his patients in rose water, claiming that bad air is the source of all suffering. You now smell faintly like a dead wedding guest. A third insists the problem lies in the stars. He mutters about Saturn and Jupiter being out of alignment. When someone vomits mid-dance, he nods and says, as expected, "You don't know what's worse, the fact that none of it helps or that you still let them try." The Basel doctor returns with a new treatment, forced sweating. He builds a tiny sweat lodge near the edge of the camp. It's just a pile of hot stones covered with furs. You sit inside, surrounded by moaning dancers, your skin slick with fever. The idea is that the body will expel the corruption through pores. You do sweat. A lot. And for a brief moment afterward, the twitching lessens. Your limbs feel heavy, too heavy to dance. Hope flares. It dies about 15 minutes later when your legs start jerking again, worse than before, as if punishing you for trying to rest. Someone whispers, "It's the devil." Someone else hisses, "It's the saints." Someone further off just sobs. A physician tries to administer a concoction of wormwood and vinegar. You sip it. Immediately regret it. It tastes like someone boiled laundry in despair. And yet, you beg for more. You've reached the stage where anything is worth trying. You drink things that sting. You chew roots you can't name. You let a woman press leeches to your ankles while whispering Latin phrases she clearly just made up. None of it works. Or if it does, not for long. One evening, a scholar joins the fray. Not a healer, no, he's here to observe. He stands by the edge of the square with a quill and parchment, scribbling madly as you convulse past him. He asks questions like, "How long have you felt the urge to dance, and do you feel possessed by rhythm or by will?" You try to answer, but your words are tangled in gasps. He nods thoughtfully, writes something down, then sneezes dramatically and walks away. You kind of hate him. But then who wouldn't be curious? You are, after all, a living mystery. And nothing terrifies the medieval mind more than mystery. It suggests divine punishment or worse, divine indifference. That's why, despite the physicians, despite the barriers and prayers and lute ballads, the dancers still spin. Still jerk. Still twitch. No one understands it. And no one can stop it. The square has changed again. Now it smells of herbs and desperation. The healers have taken over one corner, set up crude stations. They smear ointments made of fat and myrrh. They chant over bruised limbs. One even tries a ceremony involving goat entrails and ash. You don't ask questions. You let it happen. Because what else is there? Historians still debate whether the plague ever responded to treatment or if its victims simply exhausted themselves into stillness. No pattern holds. Some recover. Others don't. No one knows why. At night, you huddle with others under a sheet held up by 2 sticks. It's barely shelter, but it creates the illusion of safety. Someone next to you mutters, "My brother stopped dancing last week." You turn your aching neck. And? He stopped breathing, too. Ah, that tracks. The air is thick with unasked questions. Is this madness? Illness? Punishment? Are you meant to atone for something? Or is your body just broken in some way no one can see? You lie still, briefly listening to the shuffling around you like moths trapped inside a box. The stars blink indifferently above. Then your heel kicks out. And it begins again. You've started counting your twitches. Not as a cure, but as a kind of ritual. Left foot jerks, 1. Right elbow spasms, 2. Shoulders convulse like you've just heard a terrible joke, 3. You make it to 36 before your body gives up the pattern entirely and decides to do its own interpretive solo. You're not alone in this weird coping strategy. Others hum songs to themselves while moving. A woman near the broken fountain pretends she's dancing for a noble wedding, curtsying between spasms with dramatic flair. One man has taken to shouting, "Encore!" every time he collapses. You're all losing your grip, but doing it with style. The makeshift infirmary has a new rule now. If you can still speak, you're not the worst off. That bar gets lower by the day. There's talk of sending the worst cases away, to monasteries in the mountains, maybe, or to the care of cloistered nuns with experience handling the possessed. No one's quite sure what that care entails. You suspect it involves a lot of praying, some ice water, and maybe a sharp stick. Historians still argue whether these so-called removal missions were about healing, or just about getting rid of the problem. Out of sight, out of mass hysteria. But you aren't being moved. Not yet. Your legs are too strong for that, which is both a compliment and a punishment. Your latest horror? The bells. Strasbourg's churches ring their bells every few hours as they always have. But now, the sound jolts your spine like a lightning strike. The vibration dances through your bones, and without thinking, your feet start tapping, your hips swing, your neck flicks back. It's Pavlovian misery. You hate those bells. The clergy, meanwhile, have come full circle from "this is a punishment from God" to "maybe it's the work of Satan in disguise." That shift means a rise in exorcisms. Yes, they're exorcising people now. You see one of these sessions from a distance. A boy, barely 13, flailing under a blanket held down by 4 monks. One shouts, "I cast you out, unclean spirit," as another sprinkles water over his thrashing head. To their credit, the boy does stop moving for about 20 minutes. Then he gets up, twitches violently, and runs straight into a barrel. So much for divine eviction. There's a fringe theory bubbling up from a few terrified midwives. Maybe it's the bread. That would be funny if it weren't so plausible. They say some of the rye harvest was moldy, that it might have turned into something witchy. There's a word for this now, ergot. A fungus. Looks like sit, tastes like nothing, and can absolutely hijack your nervous system. Historians today know this fungus can cause spasms, hallucinations, and paranoia. The perfect recipe for a collective nightmare. But back then, they didn't call it ergot. They called it cursed dust. You wonder what you ate 3 weeks ago. Not that it matters. Your appetite is gone. You nibble at dry bread now and then, but your stomach flips more than your ankles do. It's like your insides are trying to dance too. At night, the square feels haunted. Not by ghosts, by memory. Each dark corner holds a shape that used to be someone. A girl who stopped moving 2 days ago, her arm curled like she was still mid-step. An old man slumped beneath a stairwell, his feet permanently arched. Their bodies stay, but their spirits have tapped out. You wonder when yours will. There's a saying among the dancers now, whispered with bitter smiles, "May your feet be still before your heart is." It's meant to be hopeful, but it doesn't sound that way. You try bargaining with your own limbs. You whisper, "Please. Just 5 minutes still." You promise sleep, food, peace, anything. Your knees twitch in response. You've developed a limp not from injury, just from fatigue. Your body has reshaped itself around the motion. One shoulder now rolls slightly higher. Your left hip clicks. Your hands tremble constantly even when they're resting. You used to be able to write. Now, holding a spoon feels like threading a needle during an earthquake. You begin to remember things in loops like your steps. A memory returns, a childhood dance at a village fair. You were clumsy then too, but laughing. Everyone was. It felt joyful, aimless, safe. Yeah? You can't tell if you're possessed or punished. All you know is you're not free. The walls of the square grow taller in your mind, though nothing has changed physically. The sky narrows. The light bends. The smell of sweat, bile, and overboiled herbs thickens. Some dancers begin to murmur the same phrases repeatedly like broken music boxes. Stillness is death, one woman mumbles every few minutes. Stillness is death. Stillness is death. You want to argue, but you also keep moving. The doctors still come. Less frequently now. Most of them have either given up or fallen ill themselves. One poor man sneezed into his beak mask and never came back. A new face arrives at the camp, a nun in dark robes, barely 20. She brings cool water, speaks softly, strokes foreheads. She does not try to stop the dancing. Instead, she asks, "Would you like me to sit beside you?" You nod. She does. You twitch. She doesn't flinch. It's the kindest thing anyone has done in weeks. She doesn't say much. Just sits. And for the first time in ages, the movement feels less lonely. Later, she gives you a small charm, St. Vitus again, carved into wood this time, not turnip-shaped. She doesn't say it'll cure you. Just says, he's good company. You hang it from your wrist. Your arm jerks and flings it into a bucket. Even you laugh at that one? But for a moment, brief, flickering, you almost believe this could end. You dream again that night. A field of rye. A breeze. No motion. No sound. Just rest. You wake up gasping. Your legs are already dancing. Your legs are still going when the rain starts. Not a gentle drizzle, no, this is the kind of downpour that pounds rooftops like a war drum and turns cobblestones into soup. You're soaked in minutes, shivering between spasms, but of course, that doesn't stop your body. Your feet slap against the slick stone, sliding occasionally like you're rehearsing for a doomed ballet. The rain should be cleansing. It should feel symbolic. But all it does is make you colder, heavier, and more aware of the blisters tearing open again beneath your damp shoes. A group of dancers huddles under an overhang, twitching like poorly trained marionettes. One man loses his footing and slides straight into a puddle. No one laughs. You all just nod, yep, that tracks. The clergy reappear, this time with something new. A procession. Not a normal one either. They're dragging a heavy cart filled with relics, bones, crosses, pieces of saints wrapped in silk. It rattles through the streets like a grim parade float, and they chant as they go, calling on divine mercy to calm the afflicted. You shuffle to the edge of the square to watch, your arms trembling with each step. The idea is that the presence of holy relics will absorb the madness. You're not sure how bones are meant to do that, but at this point, if someone told you to kiss a toad and howl at the moon, you'd probably try it. Historians still argue whether this act was deeply spiritual or just a dramatic stall tactic. Either way, it works about as well as every other idea so far. The relics roll on. The rain keeps falling. And your legs refuse to stop. More people have joined the dancing now. That's the other thing about this plague, it spreads like a rumor. You'd think seeing twitching, half-starved bodies would deter new participants. It doesn't. One young woman arrives from a nearby village, wide-eyed, her hands trembling as she tries to explain what she saw on the road, a man walking in place, sobbing, unable to stop. She tried to help him. He grabbed her wrist. Now she can't stop either. This is how it grows. Not by blood or breath, but by fear and suggestion. And once you've seen it, really seen it, it burrows Indiana. You think about it constantly. About movement. About losing control. About what your limbs would do if your mind checked out. Before long, your limbs do just that. There's a theory, barely whispered, that this isn't an illness at all. That it's collective guilt made flesh. That the whole city is trying to dance away its sins. Which is funny, considering most of the dancers are poor, sick, or already beaten down by life. What guilt do you carry exactly? Then again, guilt doesn't always ask for permission. Sometimes it just shows up and demands a dance. You pass a boy maybe 12 years old trying desperately to mimic the others. His feet stomp in awkward rhythms, arms jerking like someone else's dream. He looks up at you and grins too wide, too proud. He wants this. Wants to be part of it. You think, give it a day, kid. By nightfall, he's sobbing in the dirt, unable to stop his arms from windmilling. You don't know if that grin was ever real. In the early morning hours, there's a lull. Not because the dancing has stopped, but because everyone's pace has slowed, as if exhaustion finally caught up and insisted on a compromise. You're still moving, but the energy is different. Less frantic. More mechanical. You look around. What you see is no longer a group of suffering humans. It's a broken clock, ticking unevenly, each of you a cog too worn to spin properly. Somewhere nearby, a priest begins muttering about the end times. You don't disagree. The noble families, finally noticing the chaos spilling beyond the lower districts, begin closing their gates. Their doors are reinforced. Windows boarded. No one wants this madness infecting their children. They send messengers to the bishop pleading for action. The bishop, predictably, calls for more prayers. Also fasting. Because clearly, not eating will calm the afflicted masses currently losing their minds on bread alone. You start to hear rumors that the whole event will be formally recognized as a crisis. Imagine that. You've danced for weeks and now you might be considered a real problem, not just a village embarrassment. You'd laugh, but you're too tired. Instead, you watch as a musician walks into the square. He's old, balding, missing most of his teeth. But he carries a lute with careful reverence like it's the last precious thing in the world. He plucks a slow, sorrowful tune. It cuts through the twitching, briefly anchoring everyone in a shared rhythm. Your feet start moving with the music, not against it. It's easier. Almost like real dancing. Others follow. A flautist. A hand drum. Someone with a hurdy-gurdy that sounds like a dying goose but still adds something warm to the chaos. The clergy are furious. They shout about sin, about indulgence, about inviting demons with this satanic concert. They demand silence. But for once, no one listens to them. Because for the first time in days, your body isn't fighting the music, it's following it. Historians still debate this moment. Some claim the musicians were hired deliberately to guide the dancers towards structured movement, hoping it might ease the fits. Others think they just wandered in, like bored bards sensing a captive audience. Either way, the shift is undeniable. Even pain feels different when it moves in time with the song. The younger dancers start to smile, not real smiles, but thin ones, strained at the edges. A woman twirls, falls, laughs. A man stomps in rhythm, eyes closed like he's pretending to enjoy it. You twirl, too. Just once. Then your ankle gives out. You crumple to the ground, breath wheezing from your chest. The music keeps playing above you. Your arms twitch in sympathy. A small part of you whispers, I could just stay here. But no. Your body lurches upright. Stumbles. Resumes the motion. Because that's the rule now, you move. Always. And when the music finally stops, when the lute strings snap and the flautist collapses, you're still dancing. Even in silence. You're not sure when it starts, just that one morning, the square feels emptier. There's no announcement. No trumpet. No grim-faced priest with parchment and bell. People are simply gone. Carried off in the night? Slipped away to die quietly in corners? You don't know. You don't even know if they stopped dancing or if their bodies just gave out mid-step. But the space between dancers is wider now. Where once your shoulders brushed others constantly, now there's a breath of space, a brief pocket of stillness before someone shuffles through. It doesn't feel like relief. It feels like watching candles flicker out one by one. You don't know how many are left. Maybe 40. Maybe fewer. The musicians are gone. The noble gates are closed. The priests mostly just watch now, eyes hollow, lips muttering. No more chants. No more relics. Just quiet judgment. Your body no longer jerks so much as glides. You've entered what some call the flow. It's a rhythm so embedded in your bones that you barely notice it anymore. You just move. Eat. Twitch. Sleep maybe. Twitch again. You think, is this just my life now? Historians still argue whether the so-called grace phase was a sign of recovery or a prelude to collapse. Some chroniclers describe dancers suddenly moving more gracefully, even beautifully, right before death. Like the madness became elegant briefly. Like the body made peace with its rebellion. You're not sure you'd call it grace. You still smell like old stew and desperation. Your feet are still blistered, your arms still jerk with no warning, and you've developed a constant ache in your lower back that no position eases. but you no longer fight it. Maybe that's the real horror. And then one morning, sunrise just cracking the sky as someone stops. You hear it before you see it. The absence of sound, the shuffling, stomping rhythm that's haunted your ears for weeks suddenly breaks. You look over. He's just standing there. Still. Eyes wide. Chest rising and falling. Arms limp at his sides. He doesn't fall over. Doesn't convulse. Just breathes. You stare like you've seen a ghost. He meets your gaze. Nods once. Then walks out of the square. And your legs, traitorous and stubborn as ever, keep moving. More follow. Not a flood. Just a trickle. One girl collapses in a puddle, lies still for a moment, then doesn't get back up. Someone checks. She's alive. Just resting. Not twitching. Not thrashing. Just still. The news spreads like a new plague, but this one's hopeful. Dancers whisper, it's stopping. It's over. The fever's breaking. You want to believe it. But your body isn't ready to quit. Not yet. You hate it for that. You begin testing yourself. Forcing pauses between steps. 1 second. 2. Your muscles scream in protest, but you manage a 3 count before a shoulder spasm flings you sideways. Progress? A man starts marking time with chalk on the wall. He writes the date, the weather, and how many still twitch. It's crude science, but it's the only record you trust now. He says numbers are dropping fast. 25. Then 20. Then 17. He draws a skull next to each name that stops moving. You don't know whether that means death or recovery. And you're too afraid to ask. The nun returns. You'd nearly forgotten about her. She looks thinner, paler, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. But she smiles when she sees you. Sits beside you again. Your legs are moving. She doesn't mind. She reads softly from a book of Psalms. You don't listen to the words, just the sound of her voice, low, rhythmic, constant. A steady counterpoint to your shuffling. She offers a bowl of soup. You hold the spoon. You tremble. You spill most of it. She dabs your chin without comment. Later, you whisper, I don't want to die dancing. She replies, then don't. Simple. Impossible. Beautiful. You cry. Not the dramatic kind. Just a few tears leaking quietly down your face while your legs keep moving. They don't stop for grief. There's no final cure, no miracle treatment. But one day your foot catches on a loose stone. You stumble. Fall. And when you hit the ground, something shifts. You don't get up right away. You just lie there. Your muscles twitch. But your legs don't lift. You wait. 10 seconds. A minute. Still nothing. It's like the spell broke. You sit up slowly. Dizzy. Shaky. You move a hand. Then the other. No spasms. No invisible rhythm pulling you forward. You could move. But you don't have to. You sit for hours, testing every limb, every muscle, like learning your body all over again. Some movements are still jerky. Your arms don't quite behave. But it's manageable. You walk to the edge of the square. The others watch. No one cheers. No one speaks. But a few of them try to sit. 3 succeed. The next morning you don't dance. You eat half a piece of bread. Drink water. Breathe. You sleep that night, real sleep. Dreamless. Deep. You wake up with sore muscles, aching joints, and a soul that feels like it's been dragged through a wheat field full of bees. But you're still. Truly still. And the city? It starts whispering again. This time, not of demons or saints or curses, but of survival. You don't go back to the square for 3 days. It isn't fear that keeps you away or even exhaustion, it's a kind of reverence. Like when the music finally stops at the end of a funeral and no one claps. You don't want to test your luck. You don't want to tempt whatever mysterious force finally let go of your limbs. But eventually curiosity wins. You walk the old cobbled path again. Not shuffle. Not twitch. Walk. Each step careful, deliberate, like the ground might vanish if you stop paying attention. The square is quiet. Not empty, some dancers remain. Maybe a dozen. A few try to sit. A few can't. Most are like statues in motion, their movements slow and uncertain, like they're not sure whether they're supposed to keep going. And hovering nearby, always nearby, are the watchers, townsfolk, priests, a few nobles wrapped in linen scarves pretending not to stare too closely. Their faces have shifted from contempt to awe or maybe terror. You overhear one whisper, they just stopped. Like God flipped a switch. Another replies, or maybe the devil got bored. It's the first time you've heard anyone acknowledge the mystery out loud. For weeks, the town pretended to understand this. They diagnosed you, moralized at you, sang at you, punished and prayed and theorized. But now that it's ending, they don't know why. And honestly, neither do you. Historians still argue whether the plague stopped because it ran its course or because conditions shifted, weather, diet, sheer fatigue. Some point to divine mercy. Others suggest mass hysteria eventually burns out like a fever dream. But no one agrees. They never have. In the square, someone begins humming a lullaby. You recognize the tune, an old cradle song, soft and circular, the kind a grandmother might sing while weaving. The notes drift into the air like feathers. The remaining dancers seem to sway with it more gently now. And you? You sit. You simply sit, knees drawn to your chest, watching the final hours of the dance. There's no dramatic finish. No trumpet. No miracle flash of light. Just fewer and fewer bodies in motion like candles snuffing themselves out one by one. A boy collapses. Doesn't get up. A woman lies on her side, breathing heavily, hands open. And then, no one is dancing. It's over. You expect a cheer. A bell. Some announcement. But the silence that follows is too thick for celebration. It feels like the city is holding its breath. In the days that follow, the cleanup begins, not by decree, but quietly, person by person. Families reclaim lost relatives. Merchants sweep the squares. Priests bless the streets in long, slow circuits, muttering apologies for not being able to stop this sooner. You're visited by the nun again. She brings porridge this time and a comb. Time to look less haunted, she jokes, tugging a twig from your hair. You smile for the first time in what feels like years. There are still questions. Always questions. What caused it? Was it real? Why did it affect you and not others? Some say it was ergot poisoning, rye bread corrupted by a fungus that makes the brain hum like a beehive. Others argue for religious mania stirred up by sermons of doom. There are even a few bold ones who whisper about government experiments. But the one theory you find oddly comforting is the quietest one, that sometimes the body just reacts to grief in the only language it has left. Movement. You were starving. Afraid. Broken by war, famine, taxes, death, and more taxes. Maybe the dance wasn't madness. Maybe it was the scream that finally escaped. Weeks pass. Your strength returns in strange patches, your legs ache less, your balance comes back, your appetite grows. But the mental echoes stay. Occasionally, you feel your foot twitch in your sleep. Sometimes you catch yourself tapping a rhythm you don't remember learning. You visit the chalk wall. The man with the tally marks is gone, but the final numbers remain. Dead, unknown. Recovered, fewer. Changed, all. That's the unspoken part of the dancing plague. No one walks away untouched. Even those who didn't move watched it happen. Watched friends twist and fall and twitch in the mud. They heard the screams. They felt the beat in their bones. The city's festivals are canceled that year. Too risky. Someone might start dancing again. You help rebuild. You stack firewood, haul water, scrub streets. Work that feels normal, grounded, full of friction and effort. You never thought you'd find peace in blisters from hauling buckets, but here you are. One afternoon, while washing linens near the river, someone asks, what did it feel like? You pause. You say, like being hijacked by a song you couldn't hear. They nod. Don't press further. How could they understand? You dream sometimes of dancing. Not the plague kind. The joyful kind. A maypole, a festival, music drifting from lutes and flutes and tambourines. The sky is clear, the bread is fresh, and no one's twitching. In the dream, your feet move because you want them to. You wake smiling. But you don't dance anymore. You could. But you don't. The city moves on. Slowly, cautiously. New rumors fill the streets, nothing to do with dancing now. Just normal gossip. A new bishop. A noble scandal. A merchant ship with strange spices. It feels good, this return to mundanity. But sometimes you pass the square and you see the cobblestones still scarred from weeks of stomping, and something stirs in your gut. Not fear. Not sadness. Just a quiet echo. Like a phantom beat. You place your hand on the old chalk wall. Feel the roughness. See the final mark. Then you walk away. No twitch. No tremor. No music. Just you. Still. The city smells different now. It's subtle, but you notice. Less sweat and sour bread. More smoke, rosemary, and new wood from scaffold repairs. Spring is coming, or maybe it's just that your nose is finally working again. You take deeper breaths these days, and not because you're trying to steady yourself. You're not on the edge anymore. The plague, if that's even what it was, is over. But its memory clings like damp fabric. People whisper less, but they still lower their voices when talking about them. About you. They still call it the dancing sickness. Or the cursed jig. Or the devil's minuet. Your neighbor, remember her? The one who used to throw bread at dancers, won't look you in the eye. You're not sure if it's guilt or superstition. She crosses herself when she sees you, but at least she doesn't hiss anymore. You overhear her tell someone, the survivors? They see things now. They've touched something. And maybe she's right. You don't feel haunted exactly. Just tilted. You keep waking up at strange hours. Not startled. Just ready. There's no reason to be. You just sit in the dark and wait for your heartbeat to sync with something that never comes. And sometimes you still feel the urge to sway. Not from madness, but from memory. Your muscles remember more than they should. Like they've formed habits your mind's trying to forget. You fight the pull by leaning into rituals. Chores. Patterns. Morning bread, mid-morning sweep, evening stew. You recite your name to yourself, your parents' names, the year, you think it's 1519, just to stay grounded. Others don't do so well. You visit the chapel sometimes and see familiar faces, dancers who never quite came back. They sit in pews, rocking gently, lips moving in private rhythms. The priests let them be. They've stopped trying to exorcise anyone. Now they just pray softly nearby and offer bread. One woman you remember clearly, she used to leap like a puppet on strings, sits with her feet wrapped tightly in cloth, mumbling the same 4 words over and over. Left foot, right foot, fall. You ask if she wants help. She looks up, blinks, and says, I'm learning to walk again. You nod. Sit beside her. No one rushes anyone now. The city's changed too. Markets reopened, but fewer entertainers perform. No jugglers, no traveling fiddlers. Street musicians are not banned, but very discouraged. It's an unspoken rule, no rhythm in public. Not yet. Some say that a new dance might trigger a relapse. You think that's nonsense. And yet, when a boy kicks a stone down a cobbled street and it lands in a beat clack, 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 you feel your fingers twitch. Just slightly. You force them to stop. Historians still debate whether the epidemic ever truly left. Some theories suggest waves of minor outbreaks followed, masked as fainting spells, religious enthusiasm, or plain old hysteria. There's even one account of a woman in 1522 who reportedly burst into tears at the sound of a tambourine and fled the city entirely. You don't doubt it, because you feel it too, that invisible threat humming just beneath the surface. Not all the time, just occasionally, when the church bells chime too rhythmically, or when a child skips in time with their footsteps. Your body remembers, but your body also heals. One day you wake up and realize your feet aren't sore anymore. That strange tightness in your shoulders? Gone. You test a hop, just for curiosity, and your knees don't protest. Scares you a little how ready you are. So you distract yourself. You help rebuild the bathhouse. You don't know how to lay bricks, but you learn. You laugh, actually laugh, when you drop a tile into the wash bucket. The sound is so normal it startles you. You make a friend. A real one. He's a carpenter with sunburnt cheeks and a missing front tooth. His name's Johann. He talks too much and whistles while he works. The first time he whistles near you, you flinch. He notices. Stops. Then says gently, want me to hum off-key instead? You smile. That's somehow worse. But you let him keep doing it. You learn his rhythm and it doesn't match the old one. That helps. You find comfort in mismatched beats, in clumsy singing, in moments that aren't too perfect. Clean, symmetrical rhythm is dangerous. But chaos? Chaos is safe. The city leans into that too. The bishop decrees a moratorium on public processions involving drums. A baker near the square hangs a sign, no tapping fingers on the counter, please. Children's toys that rattle are quietly discouraged. But life goes on. New babies cry. Weddings happen quietly. There's laughter again, real, unforced, bubbling laughter, and you realize how long it's been since you heard it. You walk by a group of girls playing a game with sticks and stones. One of them claps in time with a chant. Your stomach tightens. But they don't start twitching. They just play. Like children. You walk away slowly, both relieved and haunted. You pass the chalk wall again, now faded by rain. A few scrawled notes remain, barely legible, names, days, one crude drawing of a foot with OW written beside it. You run your fingers over the lines. Then you pick up a piece of fallen chalk and write, "I stopped dancing." Below it, someone has already scribbled, "So did I." You smile. It's the closest thing to a memorial anyone's built. There will be no statue, no plaque, no official chronicle of your suffering. Just whispered memories and a vague warning passed from old to young. Don't follow the music too closely. And that's enough. You live now. Quietly. Carefully. But you live. Word count. 1102. Awaiting continue. For O you said. Continue ChatGPT said. Section 12 you think you're done with it. You've survived the worst of it. Twisting limbs, broken toes, sleep that never refreshed, hunger that roared louder than reason. You eat better now. You even laugh sometimes. People smile at you in the market without immediately recoiling or muttering prayers under their breath. So yes, you're healing. But healing is never a straight line. You learn this one cool morning in early summer, when the fog sits heavy over the river and a traveling troupe enters the city gates. They arrive on foot and donkey, dragging carts full of bright fabrics and wooden props. Puppeteers, performers, a harlequin with a striped mask. It's their first visit in over a year. You freeze. Even Johann seems wary. They don't know, he mutters. Or they wouldn't come like that. The troupe sets up in the square. They string a backdrop, raise a platform, tune a lute. The townsfolk gather, cautiously curious. No one's eager to be rude. This is a city still healing, but also starving for distraction. You stand at the edge of the crowd, arms folded tight. A juggler tosses pins in the air, and your breath catches. The pins fall in perfect rhythm. Too perfect. Then the fiddler begins. The music is soft, but structured. A simple melody. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Your fingers twitch. So do someone else's. You see a boy start to tap his foot. A baker's assistant sways her hips just slightly to the rhythm. You step forward without thinking. Stop, you say, louder than you've spoken in months. The fiddler halts mid-note. The pins clatter to the ground. The crowd stares. A moment passes. Then another. You realize what you've done. You're the killjoy now. The sour one. The weird one with too many opinions and a twitchy eye. You mutter an apology and step back. But the spell is broken. The troupe finishes their show quietly, no music, and leaves the next day. Some say they made no profit. Others say they were paid to leave. Either way, the city exhales again. Historians still argue whether dancing epidemics were truly triggered by music or whether that's just superstition layered on top of already fraying minds. There's no clear evidence anyone ever burst into convulsions just from a drumbeat. But you know what it felt like. That rhythm wasn't innocent. It had teeth. You sit in your cottage that night, staring at the ceiling. Listening. Not for sounds, but for silence. You've started to love silence. It isn't emptiness, it's safety. Stillness. The proof that your body belongs to you again. The next morning, Johann finds you by the river, skimming pebbles. Got a job, he says. Helping reinforce the grain silos. Want in? You nod. Happy for the distraction. Work helps. Routine helps. Order without rhythm. You learn to hammer nails offbeat. You whistle wrong on purpose. You invent clumsy songs with irregular patterns. Johann joins in, gleeful. Your private rebellion against structure, against the memory of predictability. Because here's what no one tells you, consistency is terrifying now. It's what pulled you under. You write it on your wall one day. Anything too perfect is suspicious. Your life becomes improvisation. You eat at different times. Take new paths. Step sideways just to break the pattern. And gradually, the anxiety eases. One evening, a girl taps you on the shoulder outside the chapel. You were one of them, she says. The dancers. You nod. You don't lie about it anymore. She bites her lip. Is it still in you? A question that cuts deep. You want to say no. But instead, you say, sometimes I think it's sleeping. She doesn't flinch. Just nods solemn. I think my mother has it, she whispers. She twitches when she dreams. Hums in her sleep. Won't let us play music. You place your hand gently on her shoulder. Tell her it's okay, you say. To be scared. But she's not alone. She nods. Walks away. You sit on the chapel steps for a long time, watching the sun set behind uneven rooftops. The sky turns pink, then ash blue. A woman passes with a basket of onions. A boy chases a goose. A bell tolls, slightly offbeat. You smile. Not everything is dangerous. Not everything will come back. But some things will linger. Later, at home, you light a candle. Not because it's dark, there's still daylight, but because you want to. You trace a circle in the wax strips on your table. You write down the names of the ones you danced beside. The ones you never learned. The ones who didn't get back up. You don't know why, but it feels right. Maybe no one else will remember them. But you do. You wake up the next day with your legs sore. Not twitching, just sore. You stretch. Smile. It's the soreness of effort. The soreness of climbing stairs, hauling bricks, living a life. That too is recovery. You find a rhythm of your own now, not the kind that takes over, but the kind that gives back. You stir soup without fear. You walk at your own pace. You breathe. Sometimes Johann still whistles. And sometimes now you hum along. There's a certain smell to peace. You notice it one morning as you walk through the market, stalls stacked with pears, garlic, waxed cheese, bundles of lavender, and it hits you like the warmth of fresh bread. The air no longer carries that rank, sour edge of too many bodies packed in spaces too small, twitching in unison. There's no more panic in the way people shuffle by. No one's watching their own feet to see if they've begun to betray them. It's been over a year now. They don't mark an official end date, there's no festival, no bells rung, but people start saying things like, after the madness, or since the dancers stopped. You're part of a weird historical footnote now. Just another curious thing people don't talk about unless they're whispering. But you remember. And as your limbs move with normal fatigue, not compulsion, you think surviving isn't the end of it. Surviving is just the start of having to understand what happened. You spend more time alone lately. Not because you're scared, but because quiet lets you think. And in that quiet, you keep circling the same question. Why us? Why Strasbourg? You've heard the theories. Everyone has. Bad grain, moldy bread, the so-called ergot theory. Supposedly, it grew on rye and made people hallucinate. It's possible. After all, people did dance with glassy eyes, like sleepwalkers at a rave with no music. But you were there. And hallucinations don't break toes. Hallucinations don't dislocate shoulders or shatter a man's jaw when he crashes into a horse cart. And not everyone ate rye. So you dismiss that. Another theory, mass psychogenic illness. Basically, hysteria. Minds influencing bodies in a crowd frenzy. Sure, that explains a lot, the contagious nature, the female majority, the nervous energy spreading like fire, but would that really last weeks? Would it kill people? You chew on this as you watch clouds roll in over the Vosges Mountains. You think about your own body, how it took so long to feel like yours again. You think about how you moved even when you knew it was killing you. Was that madness? Historians still argue whether the dancing plague was psychological, spiritual, or something stranger, something environmental, even astrological. One scholar even claimed Strasbourg sat at a magnetic fault line. That made you snort into your soup when you first heard it. But still, it's easier to laugh than to not know. You keep waiting for clarity. It doesn't come. But questions do. And you're not the only one. There's a gathering at the cathedral one evening. Not a sermon, just a discussion open to anyone. A priest, a healer, and a traveling scholar speak gently about bodily mysteries. No dancing is mentioned directly. It's too raw still. But everyone knows. You sit in the back. The priest says we live in an age of imbalance. The humor's rebel. The healer nods. When the liver overheats, it cooks madness. The scholar offers a soft smile. Or perhaps the mind simply rebels against life's cruelty. Perhaps we needed to move and didn't know how else. People murmur. A woman, middle-aged, tremor in her fingers, raises her hand. What if it comes back? Silence. The priest says, then we will pray harder. The healer says, we will boil mint and wormwood and rest. The scholar pauses. We'll try to understand it better next time. And you from the back almost say it aloud, maybe we'll just run. But you don't. You walk home slowly, watching your own shadow stretch and bend along the stone walls. There's no rhythm in your step. You're careful with that now. Back at your cottage, Johann sits outside your door. He has 2 mugs and a loaf of bread balanced on his knee. I figured you'd be at the church, he says. Want to talk about souls and stomach bile? You chuckle. Not really. He nods. Good. Bread's still warm. You share the loaf in silence. The crust crackles like firewood. The sky purples above and a single star winks out from behind the clouds. Johann finishes chewing. You think we're cursed? You shrug. Maybe. But we're also lucky. He snorts. That's a hell of a thing to say after all that. You tear another piece of bread. We lived. Yeah, he says. But now we've got to keep living. You glance at him. Scared it'll happen again? He stares at the horizon. I'm more scared I won't notice when it does. And that settles heavy between you. Because that's the truth of surviving something bizarre. You no longer trust your own beginnings. You watch your hands, your feet, your breath, always wondering, is this the start again? So you get good at noticing. The flick of an eye. The tick of a wrist. You watch others too. Not suspiciously. Just carefully. A woman drops a basket and giggles too long. You pause. A boy claps twice, rhythmically. You freeze. But nothing happens. You exhale. Not today. Later that night, you wake to thunder. Not loud, just distant grumbling like someone shifting furniture in the attic of the sky. You lie in bed, eyes open, listening. It's not the weather you're watching. It's yourself. And your body? Still. You smile. Then sleep again. Somewhere in the far end of summer, a rumor drifts into town like a half-remembered melody. It comes from a merchant returning from Flanders, muttered as he unloads fabrics near the old city gate. They say it started again. In a village near Maastricht. You freeze mid-step. You're carrying a basket of turnips which now feels incredibly absurd in your hands. Because how do you think about root vegetables when the plague you just clawed out of might be unfurling again, this time not here, but just far enough away to sound mythic? You wait for more detail. It doesn't come. The merchant shrugs. Could be nothing, he says. Or just dancers for a feast. You know how people exaggerate. But still, your brain doesn't forget. It stores this rumor like a splinter. You bring it up to Johann over stew that evening. He doesn't flinch. He just stirs slowly and says, we don't live in Maastricht. And while that's technically true, geography has never stopped a curse before. The next few days are jittery. You watch the wind differently, like it might carry madness across miles. You track birds in the sky, their odd formations. You wonder if rhythm itself is contagious, if it hides in the spaces between footsteps waiting for a pattern to latch onto. But nothing changes. No one starts to twitch. You still sleep. Until one morning, something does change. A man stumbles into the cathedral mid-mass, bloodied lip, torn tunic. People rush to him, at first thinking bandits, maybe wolves, but he gasps out just one word, dancers, and collapses. Now this is a proper spark. Fear spreads fast. People start gathering at the town hall, demanding answers from anyone vaguely scholarly looking. The local healer, poor woman barely knows how to treat gout, is asked about mystical contagions. The priest starts blessing anyone who makes eye contact. Children are kept indoors. Music is banned again. And you? You feel yourself unravel just a little. Because you knew this peace was temporary. You sit alone that night, trying to figure out what scares you most, the return of the affliction or the return of who you were during it. That version of yourself you thought you'd buried, wild-eyed, hollow, unblinking. What if you become them again? Historians still argue whether the return cases were part of a wider epidemic or isolated incidents blown out of proportion. Some believe different regions had their own dance manias entirely separate from Strasbourg's episode. Others argue they were echoes like aftershocks from a quake no one fully understood. You lean toward echoes. Because trauma has a way of traveling. The man from the cathedral, once revived, explains that he passed through a village where several women had begun moving uncontrollably. No music. No festival. Just motion. Quiet at first. Then days long. He left before seeing how it ended. You don't blame him. That week, the council debates whether to lock the gates. Seal the town. Create a perimeter of faith, flower, and denial. But eventually, no dancers appear here. The panic fades again like steam from a bowl. And you breathe. Yet something inside you stays awake now. You realize you've changed more deeply than you thought. You no longer walk aimlessly. You walk with awareness. You no longer touch others without a second thought. You look first, searching their eyes for rhythm. You've trained yourself to detect the invisible. And while no one crowns you wise or heroic, a few start to treat you like a kind of authority. One morning, a girl knocks on your door. She's about 12, with a worried expression and dirt under her fingernails. "My brother won't stop tapping his fingers," she says. "Mama says it's just nerves. But can you look?" You nod. Follow her home. Observe the boy, a skinny lad with an ink-stained thumb, drumming absent-mindedly on the table. You crouch beside him. Smile gently. "Do you want to tap?" He shrugs. "Helps me think." You nod. "That's all right then. Just change the rhythm now and then. Keep it off balance. Trick your brain." The mother watches from the doorway, brow furrowed. You leave them with some calming herbs and a wink. Tell him not to make it a habit. But don't scare him either. Word spreads. You're not just the one who survived. You're now the listener, the watcher. Not an expert, not exactly, but you've lived it. And that counts more than anyone's book. People start to come with other concerns. Tics, sleepwalking, strange dreams. You never mock them. You know how real it all feels. At some point, Johann remarks, "You're like the plague's confessor." You laugh. The unpaid kind. He offers you a potato in solidarity. You accept. But one night, while watching him roast apples over the hearth, you confess something real. "I don't think it ever left," you say. He looks over. "The dancing?" You shake your head. "The fear?" He nods, mouth full of baked apple. "Maybe that's what survival is. Just learning to live next to it." And in that moment you understand. The plague didn't end. Not really. It just changed shape. It became something you hold gently in your mind like a warm coal. Not to burn you, but to remind you what fire can do. And how to step back from it before it consumes. You sleep that night not without dreams, but they are slow, quiet dreams. And when you wake, your feet stay still. Somewhere in the far end of summer, a rumor drifts into town like a half-remembered melody. It comes from a merchant returning from Flanders, muttered as he unloads fabrics near the old city gate. They say it started again. In a village near Maastricht. You freeze mid-step. You're carrying a basket of turnips which now feels incredibly absurd in your hands. Because how do you think about root vegetables when the plague you just clawed out of might be unfurling again, this time not here, but just far enough away to sound mythic? You wait for more detail. It doesn't come. The merchant shrugs. "Could be nothing," he says. "Or just dancers for a feast." You know how people exaggerate. But still, your brain doesn't forget. It stores this rumor like a splinter. You bring it up to Johann over stew that evening. He doesn't flinch. He just stirs slowly and says, "We don't live in Maastricht." And while that's technically true, geography has never stopped a curse before. The next few days are jittery. You watch the wind differently, like it might carry madness across miles. You track birds in the sky, their odd formations. You wonder if rhythm itself is contagious, if it hides in the spaces between footsteps waiting for a pattern to latch onto. But nothing changes. No one starts to twitch. You still sleep. Until one morning, something does change. A man stumbles into the cathedral mid-mass, bloodied lip, torn tunic. People rush to him, at first thinking bandits, maybe wolves, but he gasps out just one word, "Dancers," and collapses. Now this is a proper spark. Fear spreads fast. People start gathering at the town hall, demanding answers from anyone vaguely scholarly looking. The local healer, poor woman barely knows how to treat gout, is asked about mystical contagions. The priest starts blessing anyone who makes eye contact. Children are kept indoors. Music is banned again. And you? You feel yourself unravel just a little. Because you knew this peace was temporary. You sit alone that night, trying to figure out what scares you most, the return of the affliction or the return of who you were during it. That version of yourself you thought you'd buried, wild-eyed, hollow, unblinking. What if you become them again? Historians still argue whether the return cases were part of a wider epidemic or isolated incidents blown out of proportion. Some believe different regions had their own dance manias entirely separate from Strasbourg's episode. Others argue they were echoes like aftershocks from a quake no one fully understood. You lean toward echoes. Because trauma has a way of traveling. The man from the cathedral, once revived, explains that he passed through a village where several women had begun moving uncontrollably. No music, no festival, just motion. Quiet at first. Then days long. He left before seeing how it ended. You don't blame him. That week, the council debates whether to lock the gates, seal the town, create a perimeter of faith, flower, and denial. But eventually, no dancers appear here. The panic fades again like steam from a bowl. And you breathe. Yet something inside you stays awake now. You realize you've changed more deeply than you thought. You no longer walk aimlessly. You walk with awareness. You no longer touch others without a second thought. You look first, searching their eyes for rhythm. You've trained yourself to detect the invisible. And while no one crowns you wise or heroic, a few start to treat you like a kind of authority. One morning, a girl knocks on your door. She's about 12, with a worried expression and dirt under her fingernails. My brother won't stop tapping his fingers, she says. Mama says it's just nerves. But, can you look? You nod. Follow her home. Observe the boy, a skinny lad with an ink-stained thumb, drumming absent-mindedly on the table. You crouch beside him. Smile gently. Do you want a tap? He shrugs. Helps me think. You nod. That's all right then. Just change the rhythm now and then. Keep it off balance. Trick your brain. The mother watches from the doorway, brow furrowed. You leave them with some calming herbs and a wink. Tell him not to make it a habit. But don't scare him either. Word spreads. You're not just the one who survived. You're now the listener, the watcher. Not an expert, not exactly, but you've lived it. And that counts more than anyone's book. People start to come with other concerns. Tics, sleepwalking, strange dreams. You never mock them. You know how real it all feels. At some point, Johann remarks, you're like the plague's confessor. You laugh. The unpaid kind. He offers you a potato in solidarity. You accept. But one night, while watching him roast apples over the hearth, you confess something real. I don't think it ever left, you say. He looks over. The dancing. You shake your head. The fear. He nods, mouth full of baked apple. Maybe that's what survival is. Just learning to live next to it. And in that moment, you understand the plague didn't end. Not really. It just changed shape. It became something you hold gently in your mind like a warm coal. Not to burn you, but to remind you what fire can do. And how to step back from it before it consumes. You sleep that night not without dreams, but they are slow, quiet dreams. And when you wake, your feet stay still. Sweet dreams.